Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Intuitive Rising podcast. This episode I am recording for the second time because the first time just mysteriously vanished from my computer. But that's okay. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe I meant to fine tune something, to talk about something more in depth or in a different way. We will trust the process and see what happens. I do have my show notes from the last episode, so I do have a general idea of what I'm going to talk to you about today. And that is an amazing spirit story. And it is a personal spirit story. So you often hear me share your spirit stories or my clients' spirit stories or ones that have happened to people that I know personally, currently, or 10 years ago. But today we're going to talk about a spirit story that's personal to me. And it happens to be about our big move from Ontario back home to Nova Scotia, which happened this summer. And now I'm all settled in my new home, in my new office. Things are starting to come together. Kids are back to school, back to routine and all those things. And now we are in my favorite time of year, which is the autumn season. It is when I feel like I come alive. I don't know about you, but that's how I feel. And so the story has to do with how my nanny in the spirit world has led me, guided me along the journey of moving back home to Nova Scotia, and how I know she's very happy and excited. So let's talk about that today. So, first of all, let's talk about like the emotions of an upheaval, of a big move. It can be like a move like I did, where it's really about a big change, right? It can be a move like I took. It could be a massive lifestyle change or a change in your relationship, or it could be about a job. It doesn't really matter. It's about change, right? And about how something that I am learning time and time and time again. So that means my soul really needs to really get this. My spirit is like, hey, Amy, are you paying attention? Why does this keep coming up to you? Why are you learning this? And that is that two things can exist at the same time. Let me give you an example. I can feel a touch of grief, a touch of sadness about moving away from Kingston, where I was for 11 years, without that meaning that because I feel a little bit of sadness and grief, that means I made the wrong decision in leaving in the first place, right? Those things can both be true. I can feel a little bit of sadness and grief, and I also can have made the right decision. And I know that I did. So that's something that I've been learning a lot, right? And it's something that I used to really struggle with. I would make a decision of some sort, and maybe you can totally resonate with this. You feel like you need to do something different. You need to make some sort of change in your life. You do it. You take all the actionable steps and you actually do the thing. And then you get to the other side and you're like, "Oh, I do yeah, I'm like good, but like I'm missing where I was or who I was with or who I was or what job I was doing, etc." And does that mean because I'm missing that or there's sadness around that change that I wasn't meant to do it? Right? Like that's definitely where my head would have gone even, 6 or 7 years ago. However, I'm in a much different place now, both emotionally, spiritually, mentally, but also physically in this space. I just saw a light flash. I don't know what it was, if it was an orb or spirit or what, but something just flew right by my head. Okay, so yeah, I've been feeling like all of the emotions. I'm also a huge empath, right? So I'm picking up on other people's stuff. Um, my husband was completely fine with the move. Although Nova Scotia is not his home, Ontario is his home, albeit not the city that we were living in Ontario. We were quite a distance from where his like home was and his family and all that. So we kind of felt a bit isolated and or removed from the area of Ontario that he was from. But he was completely fine with returning to Nova Scotia. I met him in Nova Scotia. He came here when he joined the military, and so that's how we met. And so it was always kind of a part of the plan, like when I met him, that Nova Scotia was going to be the place that I grew old. So I was just like, just an FYI, if you are going to want to be with me and want to be in a relationship and build a future together, that's probably going to happen here. And, you know, we didn't anticipate moving to Ontario for 11 years, but we did. That's where life took us. And I do now see the gifts in that and definitely see why that happened. But ultimately, now that we have a choice of where we live and move, because he's no longer in the military, that definitely had to be back home in Nova Scotia. So I'm overjoyed. But again, like feeling all the things. And he is happy to be back in Nova Scotia, but I feel like he is adjusting to the change. He was from a really big city. I'll just let you know because most people in the world know where Toronto is. So he is born and raised in Toronto. So like even like Kingston, the city we were in before, at first felt a little bit small to him. And certainly when we lived in Halifax here in Nova Scotia, that felt very small to him. Nova Scotia as a whole is a much smaller province than Ontario is, both size-wise and population-wise. But we have moved to a totally unfamiliar town, unfamiliar in the sense that we've never lived here, to both of us. And it's a small town. There's like 12,000 people. So it's definitely a big change. And so it's a change for him. And I know that he's kind of like missing the hustle and bustle a little bit of just like a bigger place, more people around, maybe more amenities. But at the same time, you know, he's making the best of it. He's happy that we made the move. Certainly there's been so many pros to moving back home to Nova Scotia, like above and beyond just being close to family. There's so many other pros that we don't have to get into today. But yeah, he is settling in, but I'm still, as an empath, like picking up on that, you know, that settling in kind of feeling, that integration of his. And then with the kids, the youngest was the one I was the most worried about, as he's 8 and like has never lived anywhere but Kingston. He was born and raised there. He had a good core group of little buddies that lived on the same street. And he was the one I was like, he might be the one that is really, really homesick. Surprisingly, he is completely okay. Resilient little guy. He's declared, last week was his first day of school, and he declared that it was the best day ever, that he loves his school more than his old school, and that he's already made friends. And so he's excited about school. Every day we pick him up, and I'm like, did you have a good day? And he's like, yeah, the best day, which, you know, is normally not what he would say to me. He normally just like, yeah, it was fine. But it's every day it's like, no, it was the best day. So I love that. My other two, I think my oldest might be having the most trouble, just with adjustment wise, because she's now 18. She's not in school anymore. So she's kind of taken that gap year to figure out what she wants to do with her life. And so she's kind of in that, you know, the in between when you're like, I don't know what to do, and I'm in a whole new place. And I actually totally get that, because I did that myself when I was about 20. I moved to a new province and I was no longer in school anymore. And so I was just kind of like hanging out, trying to figure myself out, and I didn't give it a chance. I only stayed a month where I was, and then I hightailed it back to Nova Scotia. So who knows what would have happened if I had given that a chance and stayed a little bit longer. But I totally understand where she's at. But all that to say, I am feeling all of those emotions. I'm feeling the homesickness. I'm feeling the nostalgia. I'm feeling all of the things from everyone. And I'm trying very hard to, you know, recognize what's mine and what isn't mine, right? I think it just helps to know, like, it comes back to that idea of like two things can exist at the same time. You can feel homesick, but also feel overjoyed. You can feel happy, but you can also feel sad, right? So that's helped me a lot in just adjusting my sails, in moving as the wind wants to blow me. So that didn't sound great. The wind wants to blow me. Maybe not. Okay, where the wind wants to blow me. That sounds much better. Um, yeah. So closing a chapter, opening another is kind of, it's just a weird. It's just a weird feeling. It's a welcome one, but it's weird. I'm in my adjustment phase. I'm trying to get acquainted with my new town. I want to be more involved in things in the town. I don't have a desire for like everybody to know me and know all my business. However, that might happen living in a small town. However, I do want to know people. I do want to feel like a sense of community. I do want to be able to, be at the grocery store and be like, hey, and say hi to people. I do want that. I do want to feel more integrated in the community. So, I'm just looking at things this fall of things I can do, things that are happening, maybe a group or two to join and be involved in. We shall see. We shall see how that goes. But just getting excited about this fall time. The Burr months are upon us now that we're in September, and the Burr months are my favorite. My favorite time of the year: September, October, November, December. Okay, so let's kind of get back to the story about my nanny and how she led us here. So, where I left you with this story a few months ago, back in June, was, or maybe even in early July, was high stress time of life. We had sold our home. We put our home up for sale on the 10th of June. A week, like to the day, I think we had an accepted offer. And then a week after that, we had like a firm offer, like inspection had been done, everything was good, it was officially sold. And so that was on June 24th. I want you to keep that number in mind. June 24th, we officially were like, okay, this is a firm sale, good to go. Okay, then let's go back to June 10th. So that's the day we listed. It's also the day of, or like very close around that date, that I noticed a home come on the market here in the town that we relocated to. And I just fell in love. It needed a lot of work, but it had an energy about it. It had something about it where I was extremely drawn. It was like a mid-century style home that really hadn't been updated probably since, mid-century. I think it was like built in like 68 or something like that. It was like a Brady Bunch kind of home. You know what I mean? And I fell in love with it. But not only that, it specifically had something going on with it at the front of the house that made me feel like it was the one for me. And let me tell you that. This is a sub story, okay? So back in, I believe it was April, a friend and fellow medium, her name is Jamie Day. Some of you may know who she is. She reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in doing like a reading swap. So what that means is that she would do a reading for me and I would do a reading for her. And I said, sure, that sounds wonderful, right? Like I'd love to have a reading from a medium that I trust and I know works similarly to me in the sense of like evidence and intentions and all that kind of stuff. So I said, yes, please. So we did that. And when she connected to my loved ones in spirit, I believe who she brought through was my father and my nanny. A little bit from my paternal grandmother as well, but what I want to talk about today comes from my maternal nanny, who I refer to lovingly as Nanny. And there was some other stuff that came through too, including both of my cats, who at that time were still living, and then very soon after both passed away. They came through and brought through some things that told me how, like, let me know how serious some of the things that were going on with them health wise were. Kind of, I feel like almost like gave me a heads up of what was to come. But back to Nanny. So Nanny brought up that she knew that we were kind of like looking for homes and we were going to be relocating this summer. She mentioned that there may be a delay or that we might, there might be something like we think we find the one, but then it like doesn't turn out to be the one. And there's a possibility that we might even be in our minds going, should we just rent for a couple months so that we don't have to settle and buy something just because we need something to move into? She brought up kind of like, there could be some delays in the home buying process or some stress around it. But the main thing that I remember that she brought through was that a way for me to recognize the home for us would be that there would be a purple flower or like a purple association to the house at the front of the house or connected to the house. So I'm like, okay, purple, something's purple on the front of the house, or there's a purple flower reference. So maybe there's purple flowers in the garden. Maybe there's like a purple wreath hanging on the door. I don't know, but purple. So when we're looking, I'm keeping that in mind. Okay, months later, fast forward to June 10th, start to look around online. Find this mid-century Brady Bunch home that had really good energy, and it had a purple door. The front door was painted purple. And if you are someone, well, you might not know this. It's something that I like learned over time, but having a purple door, I mean, it could be a complete like coincidence, and the person that has a purple door just painted their purple door because they like the color purple, right? However, those in the know, those that are kind of, within the spiritual community, maybe the pagan community, the Wicca community, it's kind of a nod when you see a purple door that someone that works with energy, someone a little witchy, it might live within, right? It's kind of like a witch lives within. Remember, witch simply means a wise person, a wise person. So I saw that purple door and I went, whoa, like that's calling to me. Nanny said there'd be something purple, the purple door, the people that live in the house, probably, if they're not working with energy, then they're like conscious of energy. And it just kind of got a good energy and a good vibe. And I was like, that's a home I'd like to live in. And so before we sold, had the firm offer on the 24th. Remember, it's still like June 10th. So we just put our house up for sale. We decided to view this home virtually. So the purple doored house, let's call it the purple door house. We viewed the purple door house virtually, and both of us were like, yep, like let's see about putting an offer in. Our home just went on the market here, but we don't anticipate it's going to take too long to sell. Don't know what the market's like there anymore, but I think because things have slowed down so much since the pandemic and all that crazy home buying that happened over the last couple of years. And so our agent said, no, like people are accepting conditional on home selling offers. That's what it's called. I think it's called a home sale clause, which means that you put an offer on a new house and the sellers of that house accept the fact that this offer is contingent on you selling your existing home. And so this was commonplace, much more commonplace before COVID, when, typically houses took a little bit longer to sell and sat on the market a little bit longer. Then kind of like didn't happen at all during COVID. And now seems to be happening a little bit dependent on where you are and where you're living, what the market's like. And so we went ahead and put an offer in, and we made it a really good one. And they hemmed and hawed. They had received another offer at the same time, and they kept coming back to us I knew that they wanted us to have the house. It probably because we were offering the most money, maybe. I don't know. But I ended up writing a letter to them, a note included with the offer, just kind of telling them who we are and, why we want the house and just the energy we felt from the house. And they sat on it like long and hard. And I knew that they debated, but ultimately accepted the other offer. And that was likely because it was not contingent on a home sale. So it's therefore probably less risky for them, right? And I get that, no harm done. And actually, I was so amazed with myself actually when this happened and they turned down our offer and took the other one, because my reaction to that was not like it would have been a few years ago, because we had that happen to us years ago, like 15 years ago that happened, where we made an offer on a house and then something, SHIT hit the fan, and that ended up not being our house. And I literally couldn't talk about that loss. It felt like such a loss of that home. For years, I would like get teary and I'd thank my God, like somebody stole something from me. That was my home, right? And so to come that far, to be like, I love this home, I fell in love with it enough to put an offer in, and it felt hopeful because they're kind of like stringing us along a little, and then for to the door to close was like, for me to have the reaction of, okay, that's okay. If it was meant for us, the door would have stayed open. That amazed me, quite honestly, that I had that reaction. And that's why I always say to you, you will notice your growth in real time. It's when SHIT hits the fan that you're like, whoa, my reaction to that is different than it would have been before. That's when you're going to see your most growth. And please take notice of that. Be aware and pay attention to that. And so anyhow, that was the end of that. And then we're still looking. Our home, we get the offer on our home. We're like, okay, great. The purple door home is still pending, And so we're like, let's see. Then we get a call from our agent who says, so guess what? The offer on the purple door house, the other offer has fallen through. So that's good news for us. Do you want to go back again with our same offer, and see what happens? So we're like, okay. So we do that. Again, they're like, no, we want to make sure that your offer is firm. So we had like an offer in hand, but again, it wasn't firm yet until all the conditions had been met. So again, the Purple Door House said no to our offer, maybe because they had just got burned with another offer that didn't go through. So they didn't want to accept anything until it was like, I don't even know. I don't know the reasoning. I don't want to kind of read into it because I don't know. The final answer is they said no. We were like, okay. Again, I was completely fine. I forgot to tell you something, and it's about the number 24. Remember how I said pay attention to June 24th? Because that was the day that we officially sold our home. Okay, so fast forward before we listed our home, a couple days before, or maybe like right around that time, I was talking to Jen. So shout out to Jen. Hi, Jen. Jen's a listener and a friend. And we were talking about homes, looking at homes, offers, all that kind of stuff. And I said to her, I don't know why, but whenever I think about this move or about houses, the numbers 2 and 4 pop in my mind, like 24, 24, 24. And I said, so I don't know if that means that we sell our home on the 24th, that we buy a home that's like number 24, or maybe we sell in 24 days. Like, I don't know what 24 means. I just know I keep seeing 24, and it's somehow connected to this home or to this move. And so then remember, we got a firm offer, and it was sold firm on the 24th of June. So I was like, oh my God, there's the 24th. That's what my intuition was trying to tell me. Amazing. And this is I'm going to give you another little reminder. This is why we keep track of things like that. This is why we keep that evidence journal that I tell you guys to keep, because, if I had that record. Like, first of all, I remembered saying it, but I also had it in like a text message where I had said to her, there's something about the 2024 is connected to this move. So I had that document that my intuition said it. But if that had just been in my mind and I didn't say it to anyone, didn't write it down, maybe I wouldn't have remembered. Right? So it's good to keep track of those little random downloads and things because they are evidence of your intuition if you have them documented somewhere. So get your journal out, call it an evidence journal, and get cracking on writing stuff down. So there was the 24. Okay, so now Purple Door House had said no to us twice. And now it's June 24th, and we have a firm offer in hand. Immediately after that offer had been made firm, we called the agent again. We were like, okay, third time's a charm. Let's gonna go in now. Like, I can't see why they would say no. We literally have a firm offer in hand. And so he reached out to the seller's agent, and guess what? They had accepted another offer that same evening. We were like, are you kidding me? And I said, I don't know if this is just like a really big test from the universe to like hold the vision, hold the vision, hold the vision. Or if this is a big old stay away from this home. Like maybe it's redirection. Maybe it's not this, right? So again, that's a new revelation for me to be able to detach the like, I need it, I want it, it's mine, to no, if it was mine, it would be mine. It wouldn't be so hard if it was mine. I wouldn't receive a no if it was mine. So long story short, they had that accepted offer and it went firm. So we were in limbo again. We were kind of in limbo for a good like 10 to 12 days, even after they accepted that offer, because we were waiting to see if when that left, like, because it says pending, right, until it's officially sold and the conditions have been met. So it's like pending for 10 to 12 days. And then finally it says sold. And we're like, okay, we can actually close the door on that. We don't have to be in limbo and wait around anymore. And so, meanwhile, I'm like scouring MLS looking for homes with like purple doors, which is really not that common. That was the only purple door house I've ever seen. On our search, I was looking for, are there purple flowers out front? Is there a purple wreath? Is there a purple pot? Like, please give me the purple thing. I didn't find it. Then I saw this house, okay, the house that I'm currently in, that I currently own. Amazingly, and I didn't clue into this until afterwards, this house was listed for sale on June 24th. So literally the day that we had a firm offer on our home in Kingston and sold it, officially sold it, this home came on the market. Now I can see in hindsight, it's almost like, okay, one door closes, one door opens. Same day. 24. Ooh, I just got big old goosebumps. 24th, the door opened. Door closed, door opened. Now I can see that in hindsight. And we had viewed this home virtually, and certainly we liked it. There was a few things we didn't necessarily love, like the property on this home is not very big. Like there's not really a backyard. The deck, there's a massive deck though, which like I love the deck, but my husband would prefer to have grass. But it's a beautiful home. There's really not too much we have to do to it. It was renovated. It's only 20 years old. A lot of the other ones we were looking at were like 50 years old, right? So a lot less work for us. It's in a beautiful neighborhood. There's a couple little things my husband didn't love about it, but it was mainly the fact that it didn't really have much of a yard. Anyways, but we looked at it virtually. And then we kind of walked away and we're like, I think we had looked at it when we were still in that limbo mode, waiting to see if the purple door house would come off pending and be for sale again, or if it was going to go firm. And so after the purple door house officially sold, we looked at a couple others, And it was just like roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. Like it truly was an extremely stressful time. Those like first 2 weeks of July were so hard. I was in a really negative headspace. Um, and I just felt downtrodden. That's a word I don't think I've ever used in a sentence before, but it's a word that just popped in my head. Downtrodden. That's how I felt. And you know what really pushed it over the edge? Pushed it over the edge when my husband and I, like this is in those first couple, like 10 days of July, had decided to make an offer on this house. Because number one, we liked it well enough, and it checked off a lot of boxes. And also they had another home to go to, so they could accommodate like the quick closing that we needed. Because remember, this is all happening like in June. And then now we're in July, but like we had our closing date on our home that we owned in Kingston was August 1st. So we like had to be somewhere else by August 1st. We had to have a house to go to. So um so what ended up happening was we ended up putting an offer on this home. And they we like put our best offer in, and they countered with something else, and we were like, there's a few conditions we're like, I don't know. So again, we like tried to give another even better offer, and it was still like, nope. And we're like, oh my God, there's no wiggle room. And at this point, this is when I start to have a reaction, right? So I remember the morning that we found out that they didn't accept our offer on this house, I cried. And it surprised me because I'm like, why am I so upset? Is it just the stress? Is it because the clock is ticking and we're getting so close to when we need to leave? Is it about the house? Like, why didn't I have an emotional reaction about the purple door house when I felt like so much that was the house for me? Are my emotions blurring is like the emotions blurring the clarity? Is like I have no clarity because my emotions are muddying it? Like, what is happening? But I had a big emotional reaction, like literally sobbing. And I remember coming online. I went on Instagram, and those of you that attended that live will know I wasn't crying on the live, but I came on and I was like, oh my God, I am in such a terrible, no good mood. And I know if I come online and I chat to you guys and we just chat about things, I get things off my chest and maybe tap into spirit and do a little bit of readings, I will feel so much better. And so I shared that with everyone, and that's what I did, and I felt so much better. It was such a release of energy for me. And then a few days after that, I said, let's go back to that house and let's give our final and best. It's been another week, so maybe they're willing to negotiate just a teensy tiny little bit. And we went ahead and put another offer in. This was on, I think, July 11th. And after we put the offer in and we were waiting to hear back, something popped in my awareness, just like out of nowhere. This is like, people often ask me, how do I know the difference between like my thoughts, my own thoughts, or like spirit, or your intuition versus your thinking, action taking, logical, rational brain? And one really good rule of thumb is that your intuition or spirit will just kind of like drop in. You will feel, okay, I didn't generate that thought. I didn't generate that idea. It's not like I'm sitting here actively thinking about it and then I come up with it. It is like it just literally drops into my awareness, right? I honestly feel that most like great acts of like inspiration, inspired thought, inspired action, where you're like, maybe you're trying to come up with a solution to a problem and you're racking your brain, and I like, as I say this, I can see like wheels spinning, right? It's like you're on that hamster wheel and you're trying to come up with a solution. You're thinking, thinking. And then the minute you're like, okay, that's enough. Like I need to just like separate myself, and say you go out for a drive in your car, right? And you just empty your thoughts as much as possible. and because you're now in the zone and you're driving your car, and then you're not thinking at all about your problem, and then all of a sudden a solution pops into your head, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? Like this light bulb moment. I don't know. You could say it's your higher self, right? You could say it's your loved ones in spirit. You could say it's your intuition. All the same to me, comes from the same place. But I'm giving you that example because you can recognize that that feels different than you generating a thought, generating a solution. It feels like it just drops in. So we put the offer in, and we're sitting on the couch, just kind of in limbo, doom scrolling our phones. And it was like, poof, light bulb moment. And I said, oh my God. My husband said, what? And I said, remember how my nanny said there would be something purple connected to the front of the house or connected to the house itself, like a purple flower? And he's like, yeah. And he said, that house didn't have anything, did it? And I said, well, it has like a wreath on the door that like has a little bit of purple in it, but like not really. I said, but I just had a thought. And I said, there's a lot of streets in the neighborhood that have like our flower names, right? The streets are named after flowers. And I thought, what if the street name of that house we just put an offer on is a purple flower? So it was a flower that neither my husband and I were familiar with. I'd actually never heard of this flower before. I don't know how, because I feel like it's maybe somewhat popular. Maybe. But definitely people with green thumb maybe would recognize it. But I had never heard of it, and I certainly didn't know it was a purple flower or a flower at all. And so I said, what if that's a purple flower? And he's like, I don't know. So I Google it. I Google the name of the street. And it's a friggin' purple flower. It's a purple flower. Head to toe goosebumps. I remember like laughing. Like, you know, when you're like crying because you've been upset, and then it's such an emotional release, and then you might just laugh. And you're just like laughing like a maniac. That's what happened. I just laughed. And he's like, what is wrong with you? And I thought, oh my God, that's what she was trying to tell me. Oh my God, this is going to work out. This is going to work out. They're going to accept our offer. We're going to be moving in on August 1st. Everything is going to be A-okay. And an hour later, they responded. They accepted our offer, and we could move in for August 1st. So there you go. Is that not amazing? The 24, my intuition telling me 24. My intuition, my nanny saying purple flower, purple flower, purple flower. That's how you know. But it wasn't in like a really obvious way. Like they didn't have purple at the front of the house, didn't have a purple door, they didn't have purple flowers. There was nothing purple at the front of the house. But something still told me that it was the right house. Certainly didn't feel like I was settling for the house. I love the house, so I was like, it's in such a random, not obvious way, which is often how spirit communicates. Sometimes it's in your face, but very often it's not, especially if there's a life lesson attached to the message that you're receiving from spirit. So, in my case, my nanny, from where she is in her infinite wisdom as a spirit, once again, in her spiritual form, would recognize this is something that Amy needs to learn. Amy needs to trust. Amy needs to surrender. Amy needs to make the move without knowing how it's all going to turn out. Amy needs to just do the thing. Amy needs to stop worrying and focusing so much on, is there something purple there? Is that what's going to tell me the house is there? If there's a purple door, is that why I was so attached to that house? Because some part of me had connected purple door. That means that's the house that Nanny told me. So nothing else will do. Is that possible? Because that's something that we as humans do. So it wasn't an obvious piece of evidence. It wasn't in your face. I didn't know that the street name is a purple flower. I never would have known that, but it is. So it's like this glorious piece of evidence that feels even more special because it wasn't obvious and because I kind of had to work for it, you know? I had to trust and I had to make the moves for it to happen and for it to come in. So thank you, Nanny. I love you. Mwah. Give her a kiss. Mwah. That's her picture right here. These are my grandparents. If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see. And I know she's happy because I remember my mom and I were talking once and I said, oh my God, I just heard. And at the same time, my mom said out loud what I had heard in my mind. And we both went, because I knew that it was something that we were both hearing my nanny say, which is, I'm so glad you're back there with your nanny, with your mom. I'm so glad you're back there with your mom, that you moved for your mom. What a good girl you are. And so, yeah. What else do I want to share? Oh, now, this home that we live in now we are the Purple Door house because my husband, about 3 days after we moved in, comes home from the hardware store with purple paint, the most glorious purple paint. And he said, I'm going to paint our front door purple. And I said, what? He is not like a flashy kind of guy. I remember wanting to paint our old front door like a specific color. I can't remember. It was like a tealy kind of green. He was like, absolutely not neutral colors, right? So I was like, what? You're going to paint the door bright purple? He's like, yeah. I know you've always wanted a purple door and, a witch lives within and all that, right? And I was like, yay. So now we have this amazing, magnificent, it's like the color of royalty. It's so beautiful. The most beautiful purple door with this like rainbow colored wreath. And then a mat has rainbow on it. And it just makes me so happy every time I walk in the door. So that's my story. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll never know if this episode sounds better than the old one. I feel like it might, because I feel like this one might have been a little bit more enthusiastic. Maybe because I'm in like a really high vibe today. I don't know. I'll never know why or where that other podcast went. But here we go. Re-recorded it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you back here next week. Bye, risers.